Hey everybody, it's James, otherwise known as Skate Punk Lefty, back here with another video. I noticed that I have gotten about 5 more new subscribers. These people might be because I actually did the smart thing and I posted my link on TikTok properly, and I just want to say thank you for your time and listening to what I got to say. I've also noticed that the viewership on my videos has been going up, and it warms my heart that people are listening to what I have to say. I just believe that it might be a paradigm shift. Some of it was hate, but some of the other ones were paradigm shifts where people are looking for pushback against what's concurrently going on with the Trump administration and in greater society at large. So thank you for your time and viewing. So on this channel, and if you listen to my TikTok debates, I'm proudly a black punk, a black nerd, a black skater, somebody who loves anime, from Japanese anime and Asian animation. I love superhero media, comic books, and of course you can see behind me my obsession with the Transformers. But it's like in this community we have a problem, right? Where instead of people who are making honest criticisms of media, we have a epidemic of these fake nerds who are claiming to be fans of comic books and what have you, and they put out these right-wing slop content about how media is becoming more and more woke. So recently, and even before I get to that, about the reveal of this manga about a half Japanese, half black girl living in Japan and dealing with prejudiceness, and there's a new manga out about it. I just want to ask Eric July or Nerderotic or Jeremy, or even going back to No Bullshit, how do you have time to watch all these pieces of media? And don't get me wrong, I know that you are contract employed through YouTube and maybe through the Blaze, but I thought you guys would have lives and other things to do. And I say that as a nerd with a real job. Like, I love coming home and watching the various Transformers series and Justice League and Batman Beyond. I recently watched Dragon Ball Daima. I watched the whole series through. I watched through the first Naruto show, because I wasn't able to watch it back in the day because my cable was on and off. We were in low income household, yada, yada, yada. But the point being is that I only have a certain amount of time to watch a certain amount of media, and it always never fails to amaze me how these people know every single comic book, every single anime, every single manga, and every single video game that features a black person or a gay person or a woman that's speaking up about the prejudices that these minorities in society deal with. I kind of find that funky. What I also find funky is that Eric July being a superhero fan, and that's before we show his face in here through. What always weirds me out about this is that when a story isn't woke, I think that's a bad story. Hear me out on that. Because if we have a superhero who's stopping a bank robbery every comic book issue, you have a one-noted, one-dimensional character with no motivation, no reasoning to him being the way that he is or doing the things that he does. We have a blank slate, a Mary Sue villain and a Mary Sue super villain, and a Mary Sue super hero too. Sorry about that, but you get what I'm saying. It's better to have a story where if somebody becomes a lifetime bank robber, we learn how did they get into the life of crime? Why are they a criminal? How did they grow up? What socioeconomic circumstances that they go through? Did they face any prejudiceness growing up? It's good to know these things, so when we see these people committing these crimes and doing these horrible things, we understand why they're doing them. And it also definitively goes for the hero. Why is the hero a hero? How did they originate? Why are they so dedicated to helping people? What type of situations that they live in? Did they ever face adversity and bullying that led them to use their power to help others? That is a better written story than somebody just saying, oh, I was just wanted to do the right thing, so I did it. People who have blind allegiances to the United States of America or to the police, but being a vigilante is a criminal anyway, with some exceptions, but that's a whole nother conversation right there. But the point being is that most superhero media and anime and manga and video games tackle their stories with a political backdrop. And without that political backdrop, that socioeconomic analysis, you have one-dimensional characters with nothing to talk about and mention. So apparently there's been a manga that is supposed to debut very soon about a half Japanese girl and half black, half Japanese girl and her life in Japan. And we're gonna, unfortunately, listen to Eric July bitch about it. This is only a 4-minute video, so hopefully this only is a 10 or 15-minute video.
Now, if you've been following me, you know I've spoke about this a countless amount of times. A lot of videos that I used to do on YouTube was talking about tokenization, what some call maybe blackwashing. You know, taking these characters have been classically portrayed in one way, and they swap them, and oftentimes it's for social or political reasons. But there was a post that I see that came from IS Media. There's been a lot of conversations being had here, and I wanted to chime in on it. Let's just get right into it. If you guys can see it here, you'll see that.
By chime in, he really means it's my time to shine and chap dance and be anti-black. His fucking specialty.
Viz made an announcement on October 17th.
Hold up. And before we even get past this tweet, 100% this spooky person is right. And y'all should follow him. I don't even know this person. I don't have Twitter. But yeah, racist niggas be like, stop blackwashing character, make your own characters. But when nigga make your own characters, they all get mad. This is 100% true. Because this idea, you know, that we often hear all of the time, specifically against the legacy heroes like Spider-Man, Miles Morales, or Captain America that is concurrently now the Falcon in the MCU, we have this idea that, how can I say, that they're blackwashing characters or switching their race. But when people make their own characters, like in this manga that's debuting, people are mad anyway. And, you know, it's like, there's nothing to really disagree with this tweet because it's a simple truth. When minorities appear in this media in any way, shape, or form, besides being a side character or an actual token in its real meaning, which means, because I don't think Eric July knows what token even means, but we'll see what he says throughout this video. But the point being is that, yeah, and that's the only thing black people can be, is supporting characters. Black people can never be the main characters or tell their own story. We have to pretend like, because there's a couple things wrong with this. First and foremost, I'm not going to even say that white people are the minority on the planet, but everybody is not a straight white man. There's many different races of people, of sexualities, of classes, of genders, and life experiences than just a regular straight white man. A straight white man is, if you ask me, a very Mary Sue character that has been done over and over again. Most superheroes we can name are straight white men. Superman is a straight white man. Captain America is a straight white man. Doctor Strange is a straight white man. Batman is a straight white man. The Flash is a straight white man. And the only people that have nearly as much representation, even though there's flaws there, are straight white women like Black Widow, Wonder Woman, etc. And it's even worse in some escapades when we're looking at different representation in things like the Transformers, where they had to literally fight and argue to include RC in a 1986 movie, and there was a whole campaign in the comic book industry to slander her and not include her seriously in the stories. And there's people that complain about the so-called gender swap until this day of characters like Skywarp, who were mostly irrelevant back then, but people will complain anyway and say that Skywarp should always be male. The point being is that having a diversity, if you will, of stories to tell from different perspectives can bring in new audiences and challenge people's thinking. And not to mention the fact, prejudiceness, because the idea of these media is to challenge people's thinking. And, challenging prejudiceness, right, whether it's slice of life or superhero, is, it's an injustice that people deal with in many different forms. And confronting injustice confronts the reader's way of thinking and creates a more interesting story than just saying, I'm black, I love America, and everything's okay.
It's being mixed race in Japan, like Kazubi
Why is
means
he so
facing
quiet?
daily trials of racism, microaggressions, and otherness. This is a journey of resilience, hope, and the search for coexistence. Half is More, Volume 1 by Yoiko Fujimi. Now, there's been this response that I'm looking at right now. There's someone that quotes and says, "Stop blackwashing characters, make your own characters," saying basically others say that. And then he says, "But when they make their own characters, y'all get mad." Well, that
It's no ha. Why are we here?
unfortunately completely misrepresents what people have been.
If that was not true, we wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be making this fucking video right now. If the only thing that people had to do was make their own characters, right? You would not be here right now. You're making this video for a fucking reason because you're a right-wing grifter who has to dunk and shit on anytime a black person or prejudiceness is confronted in media. It's your job.
Been saying about this subject matter, and it totally misses the point here. That's it. It's not as nuanced as what some people may think. It's really simple if you want to get down to the nitty-gritty of things. Okay, there is the more blatant aspect of it all. Obviously, folks take exception to seeing these tokenizations. But there's another thing that we talked about as well.
What he is briefly referring to there is the abject, obvious racism and white supremacist worldview that tons of fake nerds and fake comic book readers and fake gamers have. And he doesn't want to say that part out loud because that'll ruffle his audience's feathers too much. He has to downplay the fact that his media coalition, along with that jackass Gary and Geeks and Gamers and Jeremy and the Quartering and all these other motherfuckers, have created a toxic ecosystem of white supremacists in the nerd culture community and in pop culture. He can't acknowledge that.
When these original black characters are created, if they are not,
what do you mean original? In this case, this is an original character. This is a new manga being produced by Viz Media, and I know just as much about it as you do. So what are you saying original? This isn't an original character. This is an original character. This isn't like a black Naruto or some shit.
say based upon some other, again, classically non-black character, oftentimes you get the heavy reliance upon these tropes in which a core part of their storyline narrative is dealing with race, racism, some sort of thing in that nature, and it's boring.
Oh, hold up. I'll let him talk a little
Let's
bit
be completely
more.
honest. It's overused.
I mean, not to mention the fact, number one, when we have stories like X-Men that analogize the prejudices that minorities face as its main driving force of all its characters and the decisions that they make, I don't want to hear stories about civil rights activism and prejudiceness being fucking boring. Most stories, whether you like it or not, in some way or another, deal with prejudiceness or ignorance. Starting with like how in Star Trek we literally had the black side of the face, white side of the face shit. We can talk about the fact that Captain America, his enemies, a lot of people that not even just Captain America, a lot of superheroes throughout history had to fight actual Nazis, rich businessmen trying to exploit working class and poor people, and terrorist groups that were trying to subvert the will of the American people. So this idea that politics and prejudiceness are not an incremental part of most stories, and when it comes to especially superhero media or even anime and manga, is fucking ridiculous. Like, and it's not a character you can name. Maybe you're just tone deaf. Most media, especially the most popular ones, Naruto, Dragon Ball Z, two animes that deal with prejudiceness on several occasions, and are two of the most famous animes known to people. The Transformers deals with prejudiceness throughout all sorts of media, including the fourth media in the original comic book back in the 80s. So this idea, and even a Headmasters miniseries, you should read that one. That's a good example. So this idea that prejudiceness, racism, bigotry, and insurgent groups that are trying to subvert the will of innocent people is boring is a ridiculous and reductive analysis of most pop culture media. And I'm sorry, I could literally end the video right here, but that's literally one of the stupidest things I ever heard in my life.
It's predictable. For some reason, these guys have not figured it out. A lot of people.
And it's like, it's predictable. What do you mean? Sometimes in superhero media, when these people face or deal with prejudiceness, the problem does not get written off and solved. That's why now there's a continue to the 90s X-Men called X-Men 97. Just because the mutants win battles for humanity and some mutants do the right thing doesn't mean that the prejudiceness and the obstacles that mutants face disappear. It's never boring, and they never tell a one-noted story where everybody just comes together and loves one another. Because society, obviously, is more complex to that, and the ideals of prejudiceness, although simple-minded, are not that simple to subvert and change in people's mind.
People have not figured out, especially more so in the mainstream, more front-facing entertainment properties. They have not figured out the fact that you can create a character that just happens to be black, and they can have other things about them that are intriguing. And sure, that takes a lot of work. It may take even years, decades even, for some of these characters to catch on. Absolutely. But this reliance upon their race and saying that they basically have to deal with that aspect of it.
I mean, and that's coming from a fucking black conservative. This is my biggest argument to people like Eric July, and I could probably just end the video right here so this doesn't take all day. If there was no racism or white supremacy or suppression of minority groups, there could not be any black conservative. Your ideology exists and predicates itself on the backs of oppression of not only your ancestors, but your people today. If there was no racism or white supremacy affecting the lives of every black American, including your own, you couldn't be a black conservative. You wouldn't have that contract with the Blaze. Your stupid Rippaverse comic books would have never been made. The idea that, prejudices never affects your life is fucking ridiculous. It affects everything about a person, and that includes a lot of white people, because every white person doesn't grow up in the best environment. So having a character do a socioeconomic and mental dissection of the environments that they grow up in and the prejudice that they deal with because where they grew up is just fucking fine. It's fine. Because that tells us more about the character and his or her or their motivations to do the things that they do. So Eric July, you can write your one-dimensional ass comic books and seed into irrelevance.